It's finally here. The college basketball season is ready to go. And after their performance tonight, so it appears, are the Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Isaac Shade, the host of Locked On Tar Heels. Welcome into the first postcast of the college basketball season. We're going to do this as often as possible following Carolina basketball games in the 22-23 season. The Tar Heels are coming off a 101-40 victory. That's right, a 71-point margin in their lone exhibition game of the season over Johnson C. Smith. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you 8 things that I saw tonight. We're going to do 4 of them, 4 corners recap. So what we always do, quick ad read, and then 4 more. So we're just going to hit these, be in about 12 minutes, and let you get some good takeaways. And so here's where we start. If you want to be great, you got to do great things. And I know it's hard to think about, okay, Isaac, how do you do great things in an exhibition game? Well, it's like this. You got to stay locked in. You got to execute, and you got to dominate. That starts with your head coach setting the tone. It starts with your starters and returners, and then filters down to everyone else saying, we're going to come out here and play North Carolina basketball and do everything we can to look like we're in midseason form. And you know what? That's exactly what the Tar Heels did. And here's why you have to do that, even in an exhibition setting. Because you're the preseason number 1 team in the country. Everyone, and I mean everyone, is coming for you, whether it's Johnson C. Smith or Duke or anyone in between. You're the team with a bullseye on you, so you've got to be ready to dial it up, lace it up, and be ready to go every night. And here's the thing, Carolina, a shorthanded Carolina team, by the way, we'll talk about that in just a minute, did exactly that, as I said, winning by 71 points. And here's what's great about that. Carolina built a nice first half lead. There was one stretch where they had a defensive lapse or two. Coach Davis quickly nipped that in the bud and then went ongoing. But what Carolina did, and this is, again, what great teams do and separates them from good teams, in the second half, Carolina went on a 25-0 run, and in the final 12 minutes of the game went on a 33-4 run. And this is honestly after most of the starters are out. This is reserves and walk-ons towards the end of the game. You love to see that these Tar Heels are not complacent. They are locked in from night one. You want to compete. You want your starters to set the tone. Here's an example of that. Armando Bacot, he comes out not messing around. A double-double in the first half, 10 points, 12 rebounds, finishes with 12 points and 20 rebounds. But he only played 23 minutes. He had 20 rebounds with 14 minutes still left in the game. So you want to be great, do great things. The Tar Heels did. That's number 1. Here's the second thing. The most important thing in an exhibition setting is that you just want to get out with no injuries. Now, for those of you that were locked in before the game, you might have known this. If you weren't, you might have been questioning where some of the Tar Heels were. RJ Davis was out with a sprained right hand. We are told that if it had been a regular season game, he would have played. You're just taking precautions. You don't want to exacerbate it. I'll say more about that in a second. No Puff Johnson, dealing with some knee stuff. Makes me nervous. Got to be honest, Puff Johnson's missed a lot of time. Jalen Washington still rehabbing himself from his knee injuries, and Justin McKoy missed with a non-COVID illness. Probably just sick. Nothing to worry about there. With RJ, and here's the deal, though. So I said, you're just trying to get out with no injuries, and that's exactly what happened. Aside from those guys who didn't suit up, there was nothing majorly bad that happened. I'm sure there were some nicks and cuts and bruises, as there always are, but you got out with no big injuries, and that is a huge win. Now, for RJ Davis, again, if he could have played in a regular season game, that's great news. But you're saying, so why didn't he play? Well, here's the deal. Carolina's not playing for exhibition wins or non-conference game wins. Carolina has their eyes on the prize of a national championship. That doesn't mean rush RJ Davis back, right? Like, you would rather take some L's in the non-conference portion of the season if it means you got a fully healthy RJ later on. And so that's what Coach Davis is trying to do here. The other thing is, if RJ's out, that means players like DeMarco Dunn and Seth Trimble, the freshman, are going to get a lot more time and experience, and that gives your team more depth as the season goes on. So nothing bad about that at all. And so hopefully RJ will be ready to go, but you loved what you saw out of DeMarco Dunn. You loved what you saw out of Seth Trimble. Number 3 thing I want to mention, one of the things I had said on Friday's podcast is that I was watching Caleb Love's efficiency and decision-making. And that came all the more true when we learned that RJ was going to be out and we needed to see how Caleb would do. Well, Caleb did just fine, thank you very much. Led all scorers with 20 points. He was 7 for 14 from the field. Remember, I also talked about of every Carolina player that's ever made 100 field goals or more, Caleb has the lowest field goal career percentage of any Tar Heel ever that's made 100 field goals. Tonight, he comes out, is 50% from the field. You love to see it. 4 of 9 from 3. But here's the most important thing that I love to see. If you're talking about decision-making, my man, 8 assists, 2 turnovers. That's fantastic. If it had been a real game where he's playing the full minutes, I wouldn't be surprised if he had a points and assists double-double. And you talk about your starters setting the tone and leading the game. Caleb Love was on the floor after a loose ball in an exhibition game, got possession of it, eventually led to him getting his second 3-pointer of the game, had another one just one possession later. So I was very pleased with what I saw out of Caleb Love on Friday evening. And then, speaking of his backcourt mate, RJ being out, I talked about DeMarco already. DeMarco Dunn got the start in RJ's place, along with the other 4 projected starters of Caleb, Leaky Black, Armando Bacot, and Pete Nance. DeMarco, who at times last year I was like, I just feel like he's not comfortable. He's not confident in what he's doing. Not tonight, not in this exhibition game. DeMarco Dunn looked poised. He looked cool, calm, and collected and ready to go like he belonged out there and knew he belonged out there. Finishes with 9 points, 2 for 5 from 3. He had 2 3-pointers, hit 3 all of last season. DeMarco, that's awesome. Keep it up. Love to just see that poise. Coach Davis has talked a lot about his defensive capabilities, and we saw that on display. Had a tie-up early in the game out on the left wing, just on a ball handler with the ball, and DeMarco goes in and ties him up. Those are the things you love to see, and those are the things that are going to earn DeMarco Dunn more playing time. All right, so that's the first of the 4 corners. I'm going to give you a second 4 corners, the second half, right after I tell you about Underdog. This postcast is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to spice up the college football season. It's easy to get started and easy to play while you watch your favorite team. In fact, I've created my own account with Underdog, and I'm going to be picking on some of these Carolina over-unders this weekend. I can't wait to see what Underdog puts out for the Carolina-Pitt game. And just like me, you can go to Underdog and make your very own picks. It's easy to play, available in over 30 states. You just pick between 2 to 5 players across any team, any sport, and decide if they will finish higher or lower than the stat given. It's one of the easiest fantasy games to play out there, and you can win cold hard cash in a single game. So sign up with the promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Again, deposit $100, get $100 free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store or Google Play Store. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code LOCKEDON. Get in on the college football pick'em action today. All right, let me hit you with the second half 4 corners recap of this game. One of the things I was really curious to watch was Coach Hubert Davis's bench rotation. While you can't always learn a ton in an exhibition game setting, and you've got to take what you see with a grain of salt, I was curious to see this. Now, it changes a little bit with RJ not starting because my thought was that Puff would come in first. Well, again, Puff wasn't playing. RJ wasn't starting, and so that changes some of the dynamics. But on this night, in this game, it was Seth Trimble that was the first off the bench. Now, with Dunn getting the nod in the starting rotation, you got to think that he would have gotten the come off the bench ahead of Trimble. But again, I think if Puff had been playing, he would have come off the bench before either of them. But man, Seth Trimble made the most of coming off the bench and into this game. Finishes with 11 points on 5 of 6 shooting. The lone shot he missed was a 3-pointer, had 5 assists, just 2 turnovers, played 23 minutes. And so that is great for the freshman Seth Trimble. He showed off that athleticism we've heard about all offseason. He had a really nice dunk, just rising up, and it's like, oh, he's still going. He's still going. That's great. Cuts well, gets to the rim, seems to be able to create his own shot, and clearly can create for others as well. In fact, right after checking in, he had a steal as Johnson C. Smith was trying to get the ball up court. And then on the other end, penetrated and had a nice little dump off to Pete Nance for an easy push shot in the lane. Seth Trimble, you love to see that. Another part of the bench, another freshman that has been coming on, doing more and more, is Tyler Nickel. Tyler Nickel, I have said all offseason, is this offensively gifted, highly offensively gifted player, but that his defense would, the deficiency in his defense would cause him to not get as many minutes as his offense would allow him to. But man, if he continues to put the ball in the bucket at the level he has, like as long as he's not a sieve on defense, he's going to be seeing minutes. Had 2 more threes tonight, played 16 minutes, 9 points. He's quick with his catch and release. The ball looks nice. His form is great, and has some requisite length and height. And man, I'm really interested to see what happens with Tyler Nickel as the season gets underway, especially before Jalen Washington is in the mix. I think that will be an important factor that Nickel can play. What about Pete Nance? Everyone's wondering what the Brady Manek replacement is going to do. I think the big thing that a lot of people are going to be saying is, boy, his 3-point shot didn't look great. And listen, he was 0 for his first 4 from 3. That's true. And it doesn't have much arc on the shot, but he connected on his 5th. He did hit 1. But we've said Pete Nance is not going to be Brady Manek. He's not going to hit 98 threes. He will shoot better than he did tonight. Make no bones about that. But Pete Nance had 19 points. He was the second leading scorer in this game. At 8 for 13 shooting, did things, makes the plays that you want to see, and just doing what you want. To go along with that, 2 for 2 from the line, 6 rebounds, only 1 turnover, had a steal, all of that in 27 minutes, played more than anybody else on the Tar Heels on this night. So love to see Pete Nance working his way, and I'm sure there's some jitters for him. Honestly, it's just, although he's a grad transfer, it's his first game in the Smith Center in front of a crowd against an opponent that's not his own teammates. Somebody else I want to point out is Dontrez Styles. Had a 3 and had 7 points. Again, he's not really a shooter. He's more of a scorer, getting to the rim and doing other things. But quietly, you wouldn't have realized this, had 10 rebounds for this team. Players like Dontrez and Puff Johnson getting in there and having rebounds is going to be massive for Hubert Davis's team. And so that's my third thing I saw is some of what Dontrez Styles was, or my third thing in the second half 4 quarters is what Dontrez Styles brought to this team. I think especially if Puff is out for any length of time, if he's not able to go, Dontrez is going to be a really important X factor in the same way that I thought Puff was going to be. Can Dontrez defend well? Can he continue to make elite athletic plays that help just do winning things for the team? All right, and my final and fourth takeaway in the second half is just a couple quick stats that were eye-popping. I mean, already in a 71-point victory, that's eye-popping itself. But 2 things I want to point out in some quick stat takeaways. Carolina's turnovers. You expect a lot of turnovers in an exhibition game at the beginning of the season. It's going to be sloppy. There's jitters. There's all of that. You don't have who you expect to be your main ball handler in RJ Davis. But Carolina finishes this game with only 10 turnovers. Now, part of that might be that Johnson C. Smith played a zone most of the night doing those things, and that's not going to lend itself to many steals, and I get that. But to only have 10 turnovers for a high-paced offense in an exhibition game without your main ball handler, you love to see that. And in fact, no one player had more than 2. So not only was it only 10, but it was spread out and diversified in that way. And then another quick stat takeaway, you know how good a rebounding team Carolina is. They out-rebounded Johnson C. Smith 63-26. That's right, almost plus 40 on rebounding. Keep in mind, Johnson C. Smith had 26 rebounds. Armando Bacot had 20 and only played 23 minutes. He probably would have out-rebounded Johnson C. Smith by himself if he had played longer in this game. So tie a bow on this thing. Carolina did everything you want them to do in an exhibition game. This team is deep. They're loaded. They're motivated. They're ready to go. Their head coach is dialed in. Just got to get some of these nicks and bruises healed up. But take your time with it. Let's get this thing rolling. Remember, first game, November 7th against UNC Wilmington. It's about 10 days away. But for now, huge important football game on Saturday night, homecoming against Pitt. Make sure you are dialed in for that one, 8 o'clock in the Kenan Stadium or on ACC Network. Folks, thanks so much for joining me for this first postcast of the season. This is Isaac Shade for Locked On Tar Heels. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Heels. You can follow me at Isaac Shade. Man, I want to remind you that it is always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Until next week. Peace.